great to see you.
Lunch. I must say, before we go any further, Uncle Frank, rest his soul, he's watching, but you were magnificent.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway,
yeah.
I just feel after that whole ceremony for Uncle Frank, it makes me feel good that I could come out and be Red Skelton. You know, it's not easy, you know, after you do a whole thing, you know.
I know.
I didn't want to come out. I wanted to go to the cemetery and say hello to my father.
Well,
my father's laying there now going, why didn't he come over and see me, for crying out loud?
We'll do your dad tomorrow
My father died. You could cheer up. What the hell's the matter with you? There's a girl getting a spastic attack.
Well, it's great to have you here again, and we really appreciate you coming on late notice to honor Uncle Frank.
Hey, well, the man was great. He really was. In fact, every time I did the show, every time he always touched me after a salami sandwich. But every time he said, because we go back to Vegas,
yeah,
we go way back in New York when he was a cop, and I was working at Copacabana. And he was out. He always came into the kitchen because I used to come out from the audience, and he'd come in the kitchen and say, "Hey, Don, is this?" And you know how your uncle is. The guy laughed at he laughed at anything. You know, if you were done, I'd say, you know, Uncle Frank, my cousin, that's shaking with him.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah, he laughed at everything. You know,
we have a clip of the first time you were on the show. I think in 2006.
Really?
And your first interaction with Uncle Frank, I think, on the show.
Yeah. Really? By the way, I got to tell you, Frank's your uncle. God bless you, Frank. Frank saw my show in Vegas. This is the truth, ladies. And he came backstage and he said, you know, Don, you were great. I'm going to call. Why don't you call up and maybe you'll get the job? Call up the show. Frank, I did what you said, and now I got the job. I can't thank you enough, Frank.
He really
Frank,
said
you're a moron. I'll tell you that right now.
You're right. Well, you're right. Those days, I mentioned earlier that my Uncle Frank worked at Caesar's Palace for 20 years with Cleto Sr., who's in our band here.
Yeah, nice to see you. Jesse and Frank. Anyway, Jesse and Frank, they were the James gang before your time.
And
who invited these people?
They're still sad.
I didn't die. Uncle Frank went. I didn't die.
The host made a blithering idiot out of himself earlier.
No, you know what he used to do? Uncle Frank was the security guard, and by the stage door, in those days, you went right out into the casino when you came off with the show. This isn't too fast for you, is it?
No.
Oh, okay. You're looking at me like I'm a chemistry set. And he used to stand by the door, you know, every night. And I'd come out and he'd go, stand back, everybody, stand back. Mr. Rickles is coming through. Stand back. And there was nobody there. Stand back, Mr. Rickles is coming through.
Did you ever, when he was Sinatra's security guard, did you know him then? Did you have interaction back then?
Sure. He used to come around and he'd say, you with Frank tonight, huh? Everything struck him funny. You know?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
I said, Frank don't feel good. That's the way it was.
Your mom was a real character.
Oh, yeah. My mother was a Jew Patton. General Patton, you folks, he was a great general in World War II. This crowd is dumb. I mean, every time I come up with a name, the one that whole second row goes, Patton, huh? Anyway, General Patton, he was. My mother's the kind of woman like Frank. Everybody, like your Uncle Frank, if I could say that, adored her. I mean, when I first came out to California, we lived in the Sunset Towers at the time, just the two of us in a room, and we had a towel came like a big sheet came down between us.
Really?
Yeah, this is the truth. And when I had a date, I had to go and say, Mom, please, I'll give you 100. Go out. You know?
Really?
Oh yeah, it was one of those. Why do you keep saying really? Well, I'm a liar.
I don't know if you're kidding or telling me the truth.
Sure, I'm kidding. No, I don't want to get depressed. Leave me alone.
Sorry.
Jeez, give me a break. Uncle Frank, he's trying to depress me.
Hey, Don, I know that your lovely wife, Barbara, celebrated her birthday on
94.
Friday.
Looks great. Anyway, no, God bless.
What did you do? What is, at this point, do you go out, do you go and find something for her and buy her something? How does it work?
Well, usually, I take her over to the hotel and do a couple of moves. At my age, you just open the robe and go, come on, Spider, come on. And he just sits there going, There's a snap out of it. Take a nap later. Come on. No, we have a good time together. We've been friends as well as lovers for 46 years, so I've been very, very blessed.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like Chippy, right? Was
Aunt Chippy, yeah.
She divorced Frank.
Yes, that's right.
Smart move. Okay, listen. No, that's a joke. God rest her soul. Chippy's in the back going, no, it's not a joke.
Oh, no, she's right there, yeah.
Hi, Chippy, how are you?
She, it was...
I heard a lot about her. I've never met her. I met her tonight. I met your wonderful sister in Vegas. And she came up there with the husband and said, yeah, well, no, I'm kidding.
My mother.
Well, what do you want me to do, throw a party? Your mother was adorable, and your dad, too. They were great. They came backstage, boom, whacked it down a few. No, they didn't. They were like, they were Italian, but they acted like Mormons, you know what I'm saying?
My mother's Italian, and my dad's German-Irish.
I'm not from immigration.
Sorry, we just thought I'd be clear.
Your father's German?
German-Irish, yeah.
Oh, I'm getting the hell out of here.
There's nothing to worry about.
No, I'm a Jew, and hey, it's all over, and we're now friends, right?
He was here then. He wasn't over there. But
you don't have to cop out. I know your father.
I know. So,
does he still wear his helmet?
You'll have to ask my mother.
Okay.
Hey, I got a high five from Don Rickles. You don't get that every day. Do you remember when we took Uncle Frank to dinner with us?
Oh, yeah, Jesus, we had such
I couldn't tell him that he was coming because I knew he'd drive me insane for weeks leading up to the dinner. But the night you were here, and Bob Newhart was joining us for dinner.
Yeah, right.
And I said, Uncle Frank, you want to come to dinner with us? He's like, yeah. So it was right after your book came out, your first book.
Right.
And Uncle Frank, unbeknownst to me, had written notes with every story in the book on them.
Yeah.
So at dinner, we sat there, and Uncle Frank said, Don, do you remember when you entertained President Reagan at the White House? And you said...
It's in my book.
Yeah, Frank, it's in the book. And then he would turn to your wife, Barbara, and go, Barbara, did you know Don entertained President Reagan? And Newhart was laughing, was crying. He was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
It happened like 14 times in a row.
Yeah, Newhart's that kind of guy. No, Bob, that was a fun night.
It was
great.
fun.
And you see, Uncle Frank, actually, when you came to that stage door, he almost acted like, like you were the biggest guest in show business. And I'm sure he did that with every performer that came through. But I must say, in my case, whenever he came through, he'd put his arms around me and go, you remember the night, remember the night at Caesars when you said to the girl she's a dummy? Remember that night?
Well,
that's what he tell me. He started to do stuff I did, years ago, maybe in different clubs, and he knew everything I did, And he'd always ask about my mother because I used to tell him stories about my mother. And the great thing that you're blessed that you could stand out on this stage tonight and do a monologue and show people and make people laugh and so forth and so on, and yet show the great love and respect. And you're to be commended. You were just
thank you, Don. I'm serious when I say you're not just Uncle Frank's favorite, but all of our favorites, and we love having you here. And
I must tell you, associated with that, when my father, rest his soul, he died. He died very young, unfortunately. He was 55 and he died, but he was a great guy. He really was. And I was working in Washington, D.C. in a strip joint, and you guys play that kind of music. In those days they opened a feather and you saw nothing, and all the servicemen were in the audience going, and I was in the back going, anyway, I'm a funny son of a bitch. But what I must say, that night, my cousin came to me. It reminds me, with Uncle Frank God, I'm sure he'd appreciate this, knowing where he is, really. They're probably having a meeting now, talking. and he would came backstage. He said, Don, can I see him? And I said, Jerry, I'm going on. I got a show to do. I'm going on. Come on, leave me alone. He said, I got to tell you something now. I said, what? He said, Dad just passed away. And I went, yeah? And I went out right after that and did the best show in a joint I ever did in my life.
Really?
It was so funny. The shock of it gave me such a lift in a weird way that I was funny as hell. I really was. And it was something I always remember.
Wow.
So now when anybody dies, I go over to the house and Anyway, I'm a riot. Charlie died. I'll be over the house in a minute.
Well, thank you for coming to our house and entertaining us. It's great to have you here. Don Rickles, by the way, if you've not seen Don live, you absolutely must. And the people in Vancouver are very lucky because September 16th, Don will be at the River Rock Casino, and September 17th at the Red Robinson Theater. Uncle Frank would have wanted you to have plugs.
Yeah, I'm sure he could.
Don Rickles, everybody. We'll be right back. With some Frank Sinatra music, and Don Rickles is here with us. You know, your grandchildren are very lucky because you're around for them, but
and they will come into a lot of money.
And they will come into a lot of money. And they have Mr. Potato Head to always watch.
Yeah,
the voice.
Pop is Mr. Potato Head. That's what they remember. The Disney thing.
Along that line, I bought. My Uncle Frank was lucky that his first grandchild, was born in January, and her name is Frankie after him.
Yeah.
And they have these books that you can record your voice so that you can hear people reading you stories. So, you know, if your grandparents, whatever, you can hear your grandparents reading you a story. And I thought it would be nice to team my Uncle Frank and Aunt Chippy up to have them read a story to their baby granddaughter that she can listen to. And well, here's how that went. It's great to see you.
Lunch. I must say, before we go any further, I didn't want to come out. I wanted to go to the cemetery and say hello to my father.
Well,
my father's laying there now going, why didn't he come over and see me, for crying out loud?
We'll do your dad tomorrow
night. My father died. You could cheer up. What the hell's the matter with you? There's a girl getting a spastic attack.
Well, it's great to have you here again, and we really appreciate you coming on late notice to honor Uncle Frank.
Hey, well, the man was great. He really was. In fact, every time I did the show, every time he always touched me after a salami sandwich. But every time he said, because we go back to Vegas, we go way back in New York when he was a cop, and I was working at Copacabana. And he was out. He always came into the kitchen because I used to come out from the audience, and he'd come in the kitchen and say, "Hey, Don, is this?" And you know how your uncle is. The guy laughed at he laughed at anything. You know, if you were done, I'd say, you know, Uncle Frank, my cousin, that's shaking with him.
That is true. Yeah.
He laughed at everything. You know.
We have a clip of the first time you were on the show. I think in 2006.
Really.
And your first
Uncle Frank, rest his soul, he's watching, but you were magnificent.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, I just feel after that whole ceremony for Uncle Frank, it makes me feel good that I could come out and be Red Skelton. You know, it's not easy, you know, after you do a whole thing, you know.
I know.
I wanted to.